Ashen woke choking on the taste of burning dreams. The ash came first or soft, drifting snowfall of gray motes that clung to his eyelashes and coated his tongue with bitterness. Then came the light, a weak, fractured glow leaking from cracks in the sky far above, as though dawn itself were struggling to claw its way out of a broken world. He lay on his back amidst the wreckage of another dream, staring up at a sky stitched with jagged tears of red. The earth beneath him was warm, pulsing faintly, as if the ground itself were trying to breathe. Shards of memory flickered across his mind screens. Swallowed by darkness, chains dragging through dust, a storm of shadows roaring in triumph. But when he tried to hold onto any of it, the images dissolved like smoke in wind. Another one, he rasped. Another dream shattered. Another rebirth he did not ask for. He pushed himself upright, coughing out ash as his lungs spasmed. It was always the same after a dream collapse. The sharp ache in his ribs, the trembling in his hands, the faint metallic ringing in his ears. But the worst part, the part he could never escape, was the weight. The chains, they materialized as he stood, coiling round his wrists and ankles like molten silver cooling into form. Their weight was physical, dragging against the blackened soil with every step. But they were also something deeper, bindings forged from the fragments of pain he no longer remembered. Each chain bore a faint symbol etched into its links. Some glowed softly with ember light. Others had gone dark long ago. Ashen didn't know what they meant. He only knew they followed him from dream to waking, from death to life. He took a slow step forward, the chains clinking softly, then another. As the smoke cleared, he saw what remained of the dream he had just escaped. The broken skeletons of towering structures bent backward as if twisted by a giant's hand. Pools of liquid shadow that still hissed and fizzed where they touched the air. Ghostly shapes drifting at the edges of ruin, murmuring in voices too faint to discern. They were the lost, those whose bodies lived, but whose minds had been devoured by nightmare. They wandered the aftermath of collapse, half alive and half memory, unable to find either world fully. Friends turned ghosts, Ashen murmured to himself. He didn't know where the words came from, only that they tasted like truth. A bitter wind swept across the wreckage, stirring the ashes into swirls. In its wake came whispers, soft, mocking, cruel. They brushed round him like fingers made of cold smoke. You failed again. You always fail. You bleed and break and crawl, and for what? Shadows coiled at the edges of his vision. A familiar presence pressed against him, as though trying to seep beneath his skin. He clenched his jaw and kept walking. He had learned long ago not to listen to the whispers of the shaded. Still, a part of him trembled. Because the shadows weren't wrong. He did bleed. He did crawl. He did fall again and again and again. But he always stood back up. Even when he had nothing left. Even when he didn't know why he fought. Even when the world insisted he should simply let go. Why do you keep rising, Ashen? Who taught you to defy the dark? He didn't have the answers, only the instinct carved into his bones that surrender meant losing something far worse than pain. As he climbed the slope of broken stone, the ruins gave way to a clearing. Here, the air shimmered with remnants of dream fire, glowing faintly in drifting ribbons of purple and gold. The wind carried a low hum, like a dying heartbeat. In the center of the clearing stood a single object, a monolith of black stone, cracked down the middle. He had seen it before. He saw it every time he awoke in a new ruin. But he had never dared to touch it. Today, something felt different. The monolith pulsed faintly as he approached, resonating with the sigils on his chains. The closer he got, the brighter they glowed, casting white-hot lines up his arms. The air thickened, his heartbeat stuttered. A voice, calm, ancient, patient, whispered from nowhere. You have walked through hell, Ashen, alone, abandoned, forgotten, yet you still rise. Why? He reached out, and trembling, fingers brushing the cold surface of the monolith, and the world fractured. Light exploded behind his eyes. Images surged through him, a tower of glass spiraling into a starless sky. A figure cloaked in shimmering silver leaning over a bed of dreams. A battlefield where men screamed without sound while shadows tore them apart. A voice boomed through the visions, sharp as steel. When you break, you reveal your truth. Ashen staggered back, hand burning. The visions vanished. But the voice lingered. He knew that voice. He feared that voice. The Dreamsmith. The one who broke worlds. The one who forged nightmares. The one who whispered to him in every dream collapse. The one who wanted Ashen dead or worse, shattered. Ashen's breath shook. He felt his chest tighten with a surge of anger so old it tasted like memory. "Why are you hunting me?" he whispered into the wind. "What did you do to me?" The monolith went silent. The chains round his wrists cooled back into dull silver. Nothing answered him, except the soft crunch of footsteps behind him. Ashen froze. Slow. Heavy. Wrong. He turned. A shade walker stepped from the smoke, a twisted echo of a man, its face a hollow mask of swirling darkness. Shadows oozed from its limbs like leaking tar. It tilted its head at Ashen, as though recognizing him. And then it spoke, its voice made of broken whispers. "You cannot run from what you were." Ashen took a step back. The chains hummed with sudden heat, reacting to the shade's presence. "I don't remember what I was," he said, fists curling. A low, rattling laugh seeped from the creature. "That," it hissed, "is why you fear the truth." The shade lunged. Ashen braced himself, chains igniting with fierce white light, and as the two collided, the dream-warped clearing erupted into chaos. The shade walker struck with a force that shattered the ground beneath Ashen's feet. He rolled aside as black claws cleaved through stone where his head had been just moments before. The chains round his arms blazed, reacting to the danger-like living metal. They tightened, guiding his movements, pulling his limbs into patterns he didn't consciously know. Instinct. Or memory. Or something far older. The shade lunged again. Ashen pivoted, letting the chains snap outward, striking the creature across its chest. Light met shadow in a brilliant burst of sparks. The shade reeled but didn't fall. It had no bones to break, no lungs to wind, no heart to wound. It was made of spite and nightmare, held together only by the Dreamsmith's will. Its form rippled as it reoriented itself, head tilting like a broken puppet. "You fight as though the world hasn't already forgotten you," it croaked. Ashen snarled in response. "And you talk as if you ever knew me," he charged. The chains arced behind him like comet trails, slamming down on the shade with blinding force. Each strike tore away strands of darkness, revealing glimpses of something beneath patches of pale skin, fragments of armor, the flicker of a human eye. A person, a prisoner trapped inside the nightmare. Ashen hesitated. It was a mistake. The shade's claws raked across his ribs, sending him crashing to the ground. Pain flared, hot and sharp. Blood soaked into the ash beneath him. The world tilted sideways. The creature loomed over him, its distorted face twisting into a grotesque mask. "Break," it whispered. "Break like you were meant to." Ashen gritted his teeth, his vision swimming. He pushed himself up despite the searing agony, forcing his body to obey. "I don't break," he whispered back. He'd ignited inside him not fire, but something deeper, purpose, defiance. A quiet but steady voice inside him, reminding him of who he chose to be, even if he couldn't remember who he once was. The chains turned white hot. Ashen thrust his hand upward. A blast of radiant force erupted from the sigils on his shackles, striking the shade squarely at chest. The creature shrieked, her sound like metal folding in on itself as its form dissolved into swirling dust. Silence rushed into the clearing. Not peaceful silence. It was a heavy, oppressive quiet that seemed to swallow even the echo of the battle. Ashen sank to one knee, clutching his ribs. Blood dripped from his fingers onto the cracked soil. He waited for the world to shift again, for the Dreamsmith's voice to slither into his mind. But nothing came. just empty stillness, just pain, just the chains cooling on his skin like dying embers. The silent hell lay just beyond the clearing, though Ashen did not know it by name. He only knew he was being pulled toward it. The dream waste shifted around him as he walked, the landscape changing in slow waves like a mirage breathed into life. The ground turned glassy and black, polished like obsidian. The sky darkened until it resembled a vast dome of smoke. The air grew thick, pressing against his ears, muffling the sound of his footsteps. Then the last sound vanished. His breath no longer echoed. His chains no longer clanked. Even his heartbeat thudded without noise. This was the silent hell, a place where sound itself was devoured. Ashen fought the instinctual panic that surged through him. Silence in battle was disorienting. Silence in his own skull was maddening. The world felt hollowed out, like he was walking through the corpse of a memory. He kept going. Here, the lost wandered dream-worn figures with hollow eyes and trembling hands. They moved like sleepwalkers trapped in an eternal nightmare loop, repeating motions without meaning. Some reached out to him with shaking fingers, their mouths opening in silent screams. Ashen's chest tightened. "Were you all like this?" he whispered, though he could not hear his own voice. A girl stumbled past him, too young, her face blurred as though she had never been fully imagined. Her hands clutched something to her chest, a small wooden toy horse, cracked and burned. Ashen reached out. She recalled instantly, cradling the toy with a feral protectiveness. Her mouth opened. Silent sobs. He let her go. The chains on his wrists grew heavy. He knew without knowing how that if he allowed himself to feel too much here, the silent hell would claim him. The nightmares fed on emotion. They yearned for cracks in the mind. And Ashen had more cracks than most. He moved deeper into the wasteland. As the path narrowed into a valley of towering stone slabs, he saw markings etched into them, old sigils, ancient runes that pulsed with faint white light. Unlike the sigils on his chains, these radiated calm instead of power. The stones formed a warding path. Ashen followed it gratefully. At the end of the path stood a figure. Not a shade. Not one of the lost. A woman. Her cloak flowed like liquid starlight. Her hair was a pale cascade, shimmering against the dark. She held a lantern that emitted no flame, only a soft sphere of golden light that seemed to suppress the eternal silence around them. Ashen froze. The woman turned, her eyes silver, ancient. Knowing widened with recognition. "You," she said softly, somehow. He heard her voice. It cut through the silence like a blade of pure sound. Ashen swallowed, words catching in his throat. "Do you know me?" She stepped closer, studying the chains on his arms, the blood on his ribs, the exhaustion etched into his posture. "I knew you once," she said. "Before the Dreamsmith broke the world." "Before he broke you," Ashen's breath hitched. He had expected many answers. He had feared others. But nothing struck harder than the quiet grief in her tone. "Who am I?" he asked, his voice trembling. The woman lifted her lantern. The light flared brighter than any dream light he had seen illuminating the valley. The wandering lust, the cracks in the sky, and the countless shadows watching from just beyond the glow. "You are the last of the unbroken," she said. "The one the Dreamsmith failed to shatter." She reached out a hand. "And if you are here, Ashen, it means the world is closer to its end than I dared believe." A chill ran down his spine. His chains began to tremble, and somewhere deep in the silent hell, something enormous stirred. Ashen stared at the woman's outstretched hand, at the soft halo of light that pushed back the silent hell. He felt like a child at the edge of a door he'd already walked through long ago. "The last of the unbroken," he said slowly. "I don't even know what that means." The woman's gaze softened. "Then come out of the hush, Ashen. Silence is where the Dreamsmith's lies cling strongest." He hesitated only a heartbeat before taking her hand. The lantern light flared, and the suffocating quiet shattered like glass. Sound crashed back into existence. The clink of his chains, his own ragged breath, the distant sobs of the lost. For the first time since entering this nightmare, he heard his own voice clearly when he whispered, "Who are you?" The woman stepped back, lowering the lantern. They stood in a circle of warm glow amid an ocean of shadow and wandering figures. "I am called Leora," she said, "a lantern bearer of the old keep." And, she added, a faint wryness touching her lips, the one who warned them not to trust the Dreamsmith in the first place. There was so much grief beneath the half-smile that Ashen felt his chest tighten. "The old keep," he echoed. The words sparked a faint twinge in his mind. "I've heard that name before. You've done more than hear it," Leora said quietly. "You commanded it once." The world swayed. "Commanded, walk with me," she said gently. "The lost do not come close to the lantern. We have a little time before this place remembers to hate you again." They began to move, the lantern's glow rolling ahead of them. The lost parted unconsciously, drifting aside like reeds in a silent current. Some stared at Ashen with hollow eyes, as if dimly recognizing him from dreams that had never fully formed. Leora watched them pass. These are the ones who weren't strong enough. Broken minds. Stolen dreams. Their bodies still walk in the waking world, but their spirits are trapped here, repeating the moment they lost themselves. Ashen swallowed. Can they be freed? Not while the Dreamsmith still sits his glass tower and feeds on their fear. The name struck him like a blow. A vision rose in his mind, a spire of shimmering glass spiraling into a starless sky. "I've seen that tower," he whispered. "In the ruins where I woke. It's the anchor," Leora said. "The place where dream and waking were stitched together. The greatest work of the man we once called Kale, master shaper of dreams." The name tasted familiar. "And now?" Ashen asked. "Now, we call him the Dreamsmith." They came to a wide basin of polished black rock, where the broken ribs of some ancient building rose from the ground. Leora motioned for him to sit. The chains settled round him like coiled serpents. "You asked who you are," she said. "To answer that, I must first tell you what happened to all of us." Leora began her story. Once, dreams were not weapons, and nightmares faded with the dawn. But Kale saw power in them. He believed that if mankind could shape its dreams, they could shape reality itself, heal trauma, erase sorrow, forge courage. He believed we could burn out our weaknesses like impurities in steel. Ashen listened, something inside him reacting to her words. He had heard this story before. Perhaps he had been the one telling it. Aerith formed the order of the shaping hand. Leora continued. Scholars, mages, soldiers, lantern bearers. The old keep became their fortress, the glass tower their masterpiece. They learned to anchor dreams, walk them, mend them. And at the head of their defense stood a man who volunteered to bear the worst of it. A man who opened his mind to every nightmare, so others wouldn't have to. She looked at him. Ashen's hands shook. "You," she said. "You were that man." His throat constricted. "If I was so important," he said bitterly, "why does my mind feel like someone took a hammer to it?" Leora's expression darkened. Because Aerith's work twisted. He became obsessed with breaking people to reveal their truth. He began experiments. He forged chains not from iron, but from memory and pain. He shackled nightmares into weapons and tested them on volunteers. Then on prisoners. Then on anyone who resisted him. She nodded at Ashen's shackles. Those chains were part of his final, greatest experiment. A soul bound across 1,000 dream realms, shattered and scattered, reforging itself every time it broke. A man who could not be shattered, no matter how many times he died. He stared down at the glowing sigils. "Unbroken," he said slowly. "The first. The last," Leora said. "You endured what no one else could. And the strain drove you into rebellion. The records are unclear, but I know this much. You turned those chains against him. You led others in revolt." Ashen closed his eyes. Images flickered behind them. A hall of glass shattering. Chained men and women turning on robed figures. Blood on reflective floors. A man of light and shadow, his eyes burning with sorrow and fury. Did we win? Ashen asked, his voice barely a whisper. Leora's silence answered before her words did. You brought the tower down. But Aerith did not die. He retreated deeper than any of us knew a mind could go, sinking fully into the dream realms. Here, he became something else. The first and greatest shade. She lifted the lantern. And as he fell, he dragged the rest of us with him. Ashen opened his eyes. The shattered dawn, he murmured, the phrase rising from some buried corner of his mind. Leora's lips parted in surprise. You remember that name? I don't know. It just came. That was what we called the day the sky broke, she said. When waking and dream collided. When every fear and every unhealed wound suddenly had teeth. You were the only one he couldn't break completely. So he did something worse. He scattered you. Shattered your memories. Turned your resilience into his game. Every time you fall, he watches to see if this time will finally be enough. Ashen's hands curled into fists. So I've died. Many times, hundreds, Leora said. More, perhaps. Each time you wake in the wreckage of another dream. Each time you drag your chains forward. Each time you stand. She stepped closer, lantern light tracing scars he'd never questioned. You have walked through hell. With no hand to hold. And yet, even stripped of memory, you keep choosing to rise. Ashen let out a harsh breath that was almost a laugh. I don't feel like a hero. I just feel tired. Heroes are only those who keep moving after they're tired, Leora replied. The Dreamsmith doesn't fear your strength. He fears your refusal to yield. Every scar you bear is a wound he failed to make final. For a long moment, they stood in silence. Finally, Ashen spoke. What now? Leora smiled, but it was a fierce, brittle thing. No, we give your suffering direction. She set the lantern down, its light revealing intricate carvings along the edges of the black stone, matching the sigils on his chains. This was once an anger hall, a junction where different dream realms met. The wards are failing. If we wait, we lose. We go to the source, the glass tower, what remains of it, the heart spire endures. From there, the Dreamsmith feeds on the fear of billions. From there, he watches you, Ashen rose, and I walk straight into his jaws. That's your plan, not alone, Leora replied. There are others who resisted him. But first, you must prove you are ready. The silent hell is only one gate. Beyond it lies the bitter cold, where dreams go when they give up. If you can walk there and still rise, if you can remember what hope feels like in a place made of its absence, then, Ashen prompted, then you will be ready to reclaim the parts of yourself he tried to bury. Ashen looked out over the basin. I don't know if I want to remember. Leora's gaze was kind, but unyielding. You don't need to want it. You only need to stand when it comes, as you always have. He let out a slow breath. Fine, lead the way, lantern bearer. She laughed, a small, genuine sound. You still talk like him. Like who? Like the man who once told Aerith Kale to his face that fear was a poor excuse for a god. A strange warmth stirred in Ashen's chest. Sounds like he was an idiot. Leora's eyes shone. Perhaps, but he was an idiot who would not break. And that is exactly the kind of fool we need now. She tilted the lantern toward the edge of the basin, unveiling a narrow fissure in the rock, a crack that exhaled a breath of air so cold it burned. The path to the bitter cold, Leora said. Beyond this, there's no comfort. Only what you truly are, when the world has stripped everything else away. Ashen flexed his hands, feeling the chain stir. I bleed, I crawl, I fall. I know all of that already. Yes, Leora said. But you also stand. She stepped toward the fissure, lantern held high. He followed. Behind them, the silent hell watched with 1,000 unseen eyes. Ahead, The bitter cold waited, and somewhere, in a tower of glass and memory, the Dreamsmith felt his favorite experiment take another step toward him, and smiled. The fisher swallowed them. One step across the threshold, and warmth vanished from the world as if someone had extinguished the very idea of heat itself. Ashen felt instantly a sharp, crystalline ache that burrowed into his bones, colder than ice, colder than reason. His breath fogged, and then froze, drifting away in brittle fragments like shattered glass. Behind them, the silent hell sealed shut with a sigh of air too faint to be real. Before them, the world widened. At first, Ashen thought he had stepped into a cavern. The ground beneath his boots was pale and hard as marble, textured with delicate patterns like frost feathers. But when he looked up, his breath caught. There was no ceiling. The sky, if it could be called, that was a swirling dome of pale blue mist, streaked with ribbons of white that twisted like frozen rivers. Flurries drifted downward, its snowflake glowing faintly, as if catching the reflection of a sun that did not exist. The bitter cold. A realm where forgotten dreams came to die. Leora stepped beside him, her breath steady, though the cold nipped her cheeks until they glowed faintly pink. Her lantern's blue flame guttered, dimming with every step they took. This realm feeds on surrender, she warned softly, every dream abandoned. Every hope buried, the cold gathers them, freezes them, and makes them part of itself. Ashen scanned the landscape. The land stretched endlessly, dunes of powder-fine snow, jagged ice spires rising like broken bones from the earth, frozen lakes that reflected faces not quite his own. The silence here was not hollow like the silent hells. It was heavy, contemplative, like the hush before confession. Ashen shivered. "Why bring me here?" he asked. His voice came out hoarse, rhymed with frost. "Why not somewhere easier?" "Somewhere warm," Leora didn't smile. "Because the path to the Heartspire runs through the truths you tried hardest to forget." She pointed with the lantern. "We must cross the lake." Ashen followed her gaze and saw a vast expanse of ice spreading into the distance, smooth and glassy. Shapes lay suspended beneath it, blurred, but unmistakably human. Dreamers who had never risen again. Ashen's stomach nodded. "If they're trapped, they are echoes," Leora said gently. "Fragments of who they once were. The cold does not steal the so lonely the strength to continue." Ashen swallowed and stepped onto the ice. It did not crack. It did not shift. It simply accepted his weight, as though he had always belonged here. They walked. Leora went ahead, her lantern cutting a pale corridor through the thickening mist. With each step, the chains round Ashen's arms grew heavier, their sigils dimming, as though the realm itself was attempting to smother them. "What's happening?" he asked, breath trembling. "The cold tests resolve," Leora said. "It freezes what isn't anchored, conviction, purpose, memory." Ashen looked down, his shadow stretched across the ice sand beside it. Dozens of other silhouettes flickered at the edge of sight. Some walked upright, others crawled, some knelt, heads bowed, and moving. "All these," he whispered, "are who I could have been, or who you might still become," Leora said, "if you stop walking." He took a deeper breath, focusing on the pain in his ribs, the weight of the chains, the warmth of Leora's lantern light. These were his anchors, his proof he still lived. But then the air shifted. A low groan echoed from beneath the ice. Ashen froze. The shape directly under his feet stirred, a blurred human form trapped inches beneath the surface. Its face, though distorted, lifted toward him. Its eyes opened. Ashen staggered back. "What? That is a dream echo," Leora said. Her voice taut. "Do not touch it. Do not look too long." The figure beneath the ice pressed its palms upward, as though begging to be pulled free. Its mouth formed words, silent, pleading. Ashen tore his gaze away. "Gods, they are not alive," Leora repeated. "They are what remains when someone stops believing they can rise." The ice moaned again. More figures stirred. Some clawed upward, some crawled inward, some floated aimlessly like leaves in water, but one stood perfectly still directly in their path. As they approached, its features sharpened through the frost. This one wasn't blurred. This one wasn't formless. Ashen's breath hitched. He knew that face. A strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, a scar slicing down from brow to cheek, a mark he himself bore, though lighter. The figure beneath the ice looked older, harder, colder, and alive. The echo stared up at him with eyes full of unspoken disappointment. Leora, Ashen whispered. What am I seeing? She stopped beside him, her expression shadowed. A version of you, she said quietly. A failure you nearly became. Perhaps one you did become in another fracture of the dream realms. Ashen knelt. Drawn against his will, the echo's lips moved. Slow, clear. Give up. Ashen recoiled. The ice cracked beneath his knee. A hairline fracture shot outward like lightning. Souls beneath the surface stirred restlessly. Some pressed upward, sensing fresh weakness. Leora grabbed his shoulder. Do not listen. But the echo wasn't done. It pressed its hand to the ice, mirroring Ashen's own position. You don't know who you are. Ashen clenched his fists. You don't know who you were. His breath shook. You don't know if rising even matters. Ashen shut his eyes, but the words burrowed into him like frost bites sinking into flesh. Leora tightened her grip. This place knows your doubts. It speaks with your voice, your fear, your despair. But these are only pieces of what you left behind. Ashen opened his eyes. The echo stared back at him, mouth twisted in cold contempt. The ice groaned. Cracks spidered outward. Ashen felt himself slipping toward them, toward that version of himself frozen beneath the surface. A whisper coiled in the air. Fall. He reached blindly for something, anything, but found only cold. Until a warm hand seized his forearm. Leora held him upright, her lantern blazing brighter than before. The echo recoiled from the sudden light. And then Leora spoke, not softly, not kindly, but with a force that cut through the realm like a spear of fire. He stands. The cold shattered. He always stands. The cracks mended. The echo still glared, but could no longer reach him. Ashen panted, his breath fogging into nothing. Why did that hit so hard? He whispered. Why did I believe? Because the cold shows you the doubts you buried deepest, Leora said. It reveals the moments you almost surrendered. Ashen looked down at the echo one last time. It stared back, unmoving. Will it ever thaw? He asked. Leora shook her head. Some dreams do not return. Some versions of ourselves must be left beneath the ice. Ashen nodded slowly, forcing his feet forward. Then let's keep moving. They crossed the remaining stretch of lake in silence. When they reached solid ground again, Ashen collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The chains lay limp around him, their glow faint but steady. Leora knelt beside him, her lantern resting on the frozen earth. You faced the cold truth of your doubt and did not fall, she said. That is more than most who enter this realm can claim. Ashen looked up at her. This realm shows my worst self. It shows what you fear you are. He exhaled. And what comes next? Iris stood, her lantern flaring. And Frost, you meet the one who remembers you better than you remember yourself. Ashen stiffened. Who? Leora nodded toward the horizon. Through the mist, a silhouette approached, tall, deliberate, carrying something long slung across their back. A person. Not a lost, not a shade, a living mind walking willingly through the bitter cold. Ashen rose, blood stirring with unease. Leora's voice dropped to a whisper. A warden, she said. One of the last. And once your closest friend. The figure drew near and Ashen felt the chains tighten like they recognized the newcomer. The bitter cold held, and the past stepped toward him. A figure emerged from the swirling mist, each step deliberate, anchored. This wasn't a lost soul or a drifting shade. This was someone with purpose, someone real. I felt it before I understood why. My chains were reacting. The sigils carved into the metal began to glow faintly, not with the fire of their prison, but with a strange, familiar warmth. I whispered to Leora, My guy in this desolate land. Why do my chains know him? Her face tightened. Because once, long before the tower fell, he helped forge them. The words hit me like a physical blow. He what? But before I could process it, the man was fully visible. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a presence that felt like it was carved from ancient stone. His dark hair was bound back, his face a landscape of scars and hard-won resolve. But his eyes, they were storms trapped behind glass. Not cruel, not kind. Just controlled. Across his back rested a massive greatsword, wrapped in cloth, its hilt etched with symbols my mind didn't know, but my body did. My heart lurched, a phantom instinct reaching for that blade. Leor, my steadfast companion, bowed her head slightly. Ward and Kale. Kale stopped a dozen paces away, his gaze fixed on me, unreadable. Leor, he said, his voice deep and steady, heavy with the weight of years of silence. You should not have brought him here. Leor's spine straightened. And yet here he stands, the only one left who can challenge the Dreamsmith. Kel's gaze never left me. I stepped forward, my voice shaky but firm. You know who I am. He didn't answer. I don't, I admitted. Not fully. But Leor says you were once my friend. Silence. The biting wind of the bitter cold whipped across the ice plain, dusting his cloak with silver frost. Finally, he spoke my name, Ashen. You should not be alive. I blinked, stunned. That's your greeting. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. You were never meant to survive what he did to you. The chains weren't designed to preserve a man, only to test one until he shattered. A sharp, cold thing twisted inside me. So I was an experiment. Kel's eyes darkened. My throat went dry. Why would I volunteer for something like this? A humorless, brittle laugh escaped him. Because you were a fool. A brave, self-righteous, stubborn fool who believed he could bear the weight so others wouldn't have to. Leor watched us, her lantern flickering with the tension crackling in the air. I took another step. What else am I missing? What else did he take from me? For a brief, unguarded moment, sorrow flickered in Kel's eyes before he masked it. You don't want those memories, he said softly. They are poison. They break even the strongest. I am already broken, I snapped. His gaze sharpened, his voice suddenly low and fierce. No, you are not. You're fractured, lost, scarred beyond recognition, but not broken. You never broke. Not even when you should have. His hand drifted toward the hilt of the sword on his back. I tensed, preparing for a fight. Are you planning to kill me? If I had wanted you dead, Kale said, his voice flat, I would not have waited this long. Then why the sword? He exhaled, a plume of white in the frozen air. Because, he said, I need to be ready in case you are not the Ashen I knew, but the one the Dreamsmith wants you to become. Leor stepped forward. Kale, he raised a hand, silencing her without a glance. He addressed me again, his voice quieter now. Do you know how many versions of you I fought in these realms? How many shades wearing your face? How many echoes twisted by fear or pride or rage? He shook his head, a gesture of profound weariness. Too many, far too many. I swallowed hard. Then how do you know I'm not one of them? His gaze dropped to the chains, binding my arms. Because those chains respond to truth, he said. And they lie for you. I looked down. The sigils pulsed with a slow, steady light, like a second heartbeat. Kale stepped closer, closing the distance until he was within arm's reach. I flinched, but he made no move for his weapon. Instead, he studied my face, as if searching for a ghost in my features. You look younger, he murmured. Less burdened. More open. Am I supposed to take that as an insult? He almost smiled. It means, he said quietly, that you're not carrying the memory of what happened between us. My breath stilled. Between us, I echoed. Kel's jaw worked. He looked away, his eyes scanning the endless white horizon. It isn't time, he said. Not yet. If I tell you too soon, you will start to break. And we cannot afford that. But you expect me to trust you? I don't expect anything, Kale replied. Trust is a luxury, but necessity is a blade at our throats. And right now, we need each other. Leora moved to my side. Kale, we're going to the Heartspire. The wards are failing. The Dreamsmith grows stronger. Ashen's dreams collapse faster every time he rises. We're running out of time. Cal's face hardened into granite. The Heartspire is suicide. Leora defiantly lifted her lantern. So is doing nothing. The two of them stared each other down, a silent clash of old loyalties and older wounds. Finally, Cal's gaze shifted back to me. If you go to the Heartspire, he said slowly, you must first reclaim what the Dreamsmith stole from you. Not all of it, just enough to stand before him without collapsing. I frowned. And where is this memory you think I need? He pointed toward. A distant, jagged ridge of ice. At the edge of the bitter cold lies a canyon called the Morn Divide. A place where the memories of the dying gather. Your first rebellion, the moment you turned against Aerith Kayla's trapped there. A shiver, unrelated to the cold, traced its way down my spine. Trapped? How? Cal's eyes narrowed, his expression grim. When the tower fell, you weren't the only one shattered. Leora started to protest, but he ignored her. Your rebellion broke more than just chains and walls, he continued, his voice relentless. It broke people. It broke me. It broke you. My breath caught. What are you saying? He locked his gaze with mine, his stormy eyes holding me captive. I am saying, he said evenly, that at the Morn Divide, you will witness the moment you betrayed me. The ground seemed to fall away beneath me. I staggered back. Leora swore under her breath. Kill, you weren't supposed to. Better he hears it from me. Kill snapped. Then, quieter. Better he knows what waits. I felt hollowed out, empty. I betrayed you, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. Kill looked away. Yes, he said, and no. It depends on which truth you believe. My hands trembled. How can I face memories like that when I don't even know who I was? He met my eyes again, and for the first time, his voice softened, laced with something that might have been compassion. By doing what you've always done, he said. You stand. The wind howled around us, a mournful cry across the frozen wasteland. I closed my eyes, the chaos of my fragmented past swirling within me. When I opened them, I let out a long, steady breath. Then take me to the Morn Divide. Kale nodded once. Leora extinguished her lantern's flame with a whisper of magic. The full force of the bitter cold surged in, biting at our skin. But I didn't falter. We set out to gather across the endless ice. Leora, the keeper of truth. Kill, the bearer of regret. And me, the man who had once broken a world to save it, and might just have to break it again. Far above, unseen in the mists, something stirred. The Dreamsmith had felt our decision, and he was waiting. The bitter cold grew sharper as they traveled. What had begun as a haunting silence became annoying. Living hunger, a cold that wanted to crawl beneath Ashen's skin and dig its claws into the marrow of his doubts. The world narrowed to wind, white plains, and the distant crunch of their boots against ice. Kale walked at the front, his posture unyielding as a fortress wall. Leora followed at Ashen's side, her lantern now dark, but still warm in her hand. No one spoke. Words felt too fragile here, too breakable. Even Ashen's chains remained quiet, as if conserving strength for what lay ahead. After hours, or perhaps days, the terrain changed. The plains ended abruptly, the lip of a vast canyon that descended into bottomless darkness. Its walls glowed faintly with swirling patterns of pale blue, not paint, not carvings, but drifting memories caught in the ice like captured spirits. The air vibrated with whispers, some hopeful, some terrified, some screaming. Ashen staggered as the voices pressed against him from all sides. "What is this place?" he breathed. Kale answered without looking back. "The Morn Divide, where memories that die in the waking world come to linger. Every regret, every unspoken truth, every betrayal too heavy for a soul to carry." Leora put a hand on Ashen's arm, grounding him. "Be careful. The divide does not show what you want to see. It shows what you most fear." Ashen swallowed. "And you're certain a piece of my memory is here?" Kel's jaw tightened. Certain enough. Without another word, the warden began descending the sloping path into the canyon. The further they went, the louder the whispers grew. Some voices Ashen didn't recognize. Some he felt he should. Some sounded unbearably familiar, fragments of laughter, shouts, cries, pleas. Each voice tugged at his heart. "What exactly am I looking for?" Ashen asked. Kale didn't turn. "You'll know," he said. "Because it will hurt." The path ended at a flat ledge. Ice formations curled upward like frozen specters, each containing faintly glowing silhouettes, memories trapped mid-motion. Leora moved carefully between them. "These echoes aren't dangerous unless you touch them. The divide feeds on contact. Keep your distance." Ashen nodded. Some memories were peaceful, a woman humming, a child chasing a hoop. But others, a man sobbing into shattered armor. Two soldiers fighting in terrified silence. Ashen felt himself being pulled toward one, a memory shaped like a broken archway. Behind it flickered the outline of a tall hole made of glass. "The tower," Ashen whispered. "I've seen this before." Kale stepped in front of him. "No," he said sharply, "not yet." "That one isn't your memory, it's mine." Ashen blinked. "Yours?" "Then why?" Kale cut him off. "Stay focused. Yours is deeper." They continued deeper into the canyon's ripped ice. Whispers grew to murmurs, murmurs to sobs, sobs to echoing shouts. And then the canyon stilled, as if holding its breath. Ashen felt a tug, not gentle, but sharp, decisive, a hook embedded in his chest. He turned toward a dark tunnel branching off the main path, its mouth rimed with frost, so black it seemed to absorb light. Kale inhaled sharply. Ashen stepped toward the tunnel, unable to resist. Leora murmured a soft curse. "It's pulling him." Kale's hand flew to the hilt of his greatsword. "Be ready." This memory, it was the one that undid him. Ashen's stomach twisted. "I thought you said I betrayed you," he said hoarsely. Kale's eyes were shadowed. Double quotes, "Yes. But betrayal rarely grows from nothing." "Walk carefully." Ashen took a breath, steeled himself, and stepped into the tunnel. Darkness swallowed him instantly. It was the intimate darkness of a closed eye. He sensed Leora and Kale trying to follow, but their presence felt distant, muffled. Then a light appeared. Soft, pale, familiar. Ashen stepped toward it and found himself standing in a massive hall made of glass. Sigils pulsed in the floor like molten gold. At the far end of the hole stood a man with hair the color of silver flame. His hands sculpted air itself, coaxing impossible shapes from glowing threads of dream stuff. Aerith Kale, the Dreamsmith, before the full. Ashen's breath caught. Another man stood nearby, a younger Kale, armor polish, eyes fierce. He was whole. Ashen moved closer, their voices coming into focus. "We cannot keep doing this," Kale said, his tone low but urgent. "The chains are killing him." Aerith, Ashen froze. Kale was speaking about him. The Dreamsmith didn't look up. "They are refining him. Each fracture strips weakness. Each death removes impurity. He becomes stronger through breaking." Kale stepped forward, furious. "He has died 43 times this cycle." 43. "No man can endure that." "Yet he does," Aerith murmured. Remarkable, isn't it? Ashen felt sick. I volunteered for this, he whispered. The memory Ashen standing near the far wall stepped forward. He looked older, more exhausted. I won't wear these chains anymore, he said. Aerith paused. Finally, Ashen thought. Finally I stop. But Aerith turned his head slightly not toward memory Ashen, but toward Ashen himself. The real him. The watching him. And Aerith smiled. Ashen's breath hitched. He sees me, the hull shattered. Leora's voice echoed faintly. Ashen, pull back. He's manipulating the vision. But it was too late. Memory Ashen continued walking toward Aerith. I'm done, he said. You'll stop the experiment. You'll break the chains. Aerith's smile faded. No, he said. I will not. Kale tried to step between them. Aerith, enough. Aerith lifted a hand. You forget your place, Kale. I shape dreams. I shape truth. And this man, he looked to Memory Ashen, is the closest any mortal has come to perfection. Memory Ashen's eyes blazed. Perfection? He snarled. You mean obedience? Aerith tilted his head. Obedience is simply acceptance of truth. No, Memory Ashen spat. It's surrender, and he drew the chains taut, then ripped them outward. Light burst. Sigils surged. The whole trembled. Ashen felt it tear through him, the echo of the first time he fought the chains. Kale shouted. Aerith whispered a single word, break. The memory fractured. Light splintered. Glass walls cracked. Shadows poured from the fissures like ink. Ashen stumbled back as the vision split into shards, each reflecting versions of the same moment. Memory Ashen lunging. Kale drawing his sword. The tower trembling. Dream fire erupting. Loyalties shattering. Then one shard came into focus. The shard where Memory Ashen turned toward Kale, fury blazing, chains burning, with white fire, and shouted something Ashen couldn't hear. But the expression on Kale's face said everything. Hurt, betrayal, devastation. Ashen reached out in horror. No, wait. What did I? The short exploded. Darkness slammed into him. He hit the ice floor of the tunnel, gasping. Leora beside him. Kale crouched with his sword half drawn. Ashen, Leora grabbed his shoulders. Are you conscious? Speak. Ashen choked on air. Kale knelt beside him. His composure cracked. What did you see? Kale demanded. Ashen's throat felt raw. I saw the tower. I saw Aerith manipulating everything. And I turned on. I don't know what I said, but Kale flinched. Ashen, he said softly, you sided with me at first. In the earliest rebellion. But when the tower began to fall, something changed. You said things that broke us both. Ashen felt the memory pressing on him. What did I say? Kale stood abruptly, turning away. Not yet. You're not ready. The divide showed only fragments. The full truth would crush you. Ashen rose shakily. No, he whispered. I need to know. I need. His chains suddenly surged with heat. Leora gasped. Kale spun, blade drawn. The canyon trembled. And a voice, smooth, cold, unmistakable, whispered from every icy wall. Not yet. Little Ember. Ashen froze. His presence pressed against the divide, turning the air heavy and electric. Memories are tools, the voice murmured. And you are not ready to wield yours without collapsing. Ashen clenched his fists. Get out of my head. Soft, amused laughter rippled through the canyon. If I wished to be in your head, the Dreamsmith said, you would already be bowing. Kale stepped in front of Ashen, sword raised. Leora whispered, he's manifesting an echo, brace yourselves. The ice cracked. A figure stepped from the well, tall, silver-haired, smiling that same calm, devastating smile. Not a shade. Not a ghost. A perfect memory of Aerith. Kale, a memory wraith. Kale tightened his grip. Ashen, behind me. But Ashen didn't hide. He stepped forward. The chains lit like wildfire. The wraith tilted its head, studying him. I do love watching you rise, it whispered. No matter how many times I break you, Ashen lifted his chin. Break me, he said. Break me 1,000 times, I'll still stand. The memory wraith's smile widened. Good, then stand against this. And the canyon erupted into war. The memory wraith moved first. Its form blurred a streak of silver flame and shadow closing the distance between them with impossible speed. Ashen barely raised his arms before the creature struck, its hand slicing across the air like a blade of pure thought. The impact threw him backward. He skidded across the ice, his chain sparking white against the frozen ground. Leora shouted his name, her lantern bursting to life with a brilliant blue flare, pushing back the pressure of the wraith's presence. But the Dreamsmith's echo was already turning toward them again. Kale stepped forward like a wall made of scarred steel, his greatsword cut through the icy air. A sweeping arc, glowing faintly as it reacted to the unnatural entity before him. The wraith caught the blade in one hand. Metal screamed. Eyes cracked. Kel's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible, the wraith flicked its wrist. Kale flew sideways, crushing through a column of frozen memory. Shards of fractured lives rained down round him like splintered stars. Ashen groaned and pushed himself upright. The chains pulsed. The sigils were bright not with warmth, but with warning. Stop fighting us, Leora hissed to the air around them. You are only a memory. Why does he give you this much power? The wraith turned its head with the same slow, surgical precision Aerith himself once had. Because even my memory outweighs your reality. Its voice rippled like silk being torn. Ashen stood fully, ignoring the pain. You're not him, the wraith smiled. I am enough of him. Enough to remind you what breaking feels like. It vanished again. Ashen didn't see it, he felt it. Something in his instincts snapped awake. His chains jerked his arms upward on their own volition, crossing in front of his chest just as the wraith reappeared beside him, striking with both hands. The impact rang through Ashen's bones. Chains met dream force. Light met shadow. The wraith recoiled, its expression twitching with faint amusement. You're remembering how to guard, it murmured. Good. You always learned quickest under pressure. Ashen's vision sparked with rage. If you're so eager to teach, he growled, let me show you what I'm learning. He rushed forward. The chains responded, not dragging him back, but guiding him, pulling his momentum into fluid motion. He swung them. Not like chains. Like whips of burning truth. They slashed through the air, leaving streaks of brilliant white light. The wraith danced back, but the impact caught its shoulder, tearing away a chunk of shimmering memory that dissolved midair. The wraith touched its fading shoulder thoughtfully. How curious. You never used to strike to kill. I still don't know if I should. Ashen spat. You're not alive. The wraith's smile widened. But I can hurt you, it lunged, this time. Ashen met it halfway. They collided like two storms, clashing chains wrapping round the wraith's forearm, the wraith's hand gripping Ashen's throat. Frost exploded beneath them as the divide trembled under their combined force. Ashen gasped for breath, vision dimming. The wraith leaned close. You ask what you were, it whispered, its breath cold as dying stars. But you should ask who you loved, and why you betrayed him. Ashen's heart lurched at Kale. Before he could form a thought, Kale roared and slammed into the wraith from behind, his greatsword igniting with a surge of brilliant light. The wraith stumbled forward, actually staggered. Ashen collapsed to the ice. Kale planted himself between Ashen and the wraith. You touch him again, Kale growled, his voice shaking with fury, and I will erase you from every memory you cling to. The wraith straightened, calm and unfazed. It purred. There it is. The loyalty that doomed you both. Kale stiffened. Ashen felt the tension ripple through him, and old wound reopened. The wraith raised one hand, flicking its fingers dismissively. Memory echoes burst from the canyon walls, spectral forms of Ashen, Kale, Leora, and dozens more. Some were fighting each other. Some were dying. Some were breaking. Leora hissed through her teeth. He's pulling on the broken memory scale, Ashen. Don't let them touch you. The wraith spread its arms. Let me show you. The day you shattered, the canyon walls melted into vision. Glass halls collapsing. Chains burning like molten stars. Kill shouting something Ashen still could not hear. Ashen turning away, no running toward Aerith, running from Leora, screaming Dreamfire erupting, Ashen falling Kale. Reaching for him, Ashen slammed his eyes shut. Stop, everything snapped. The visions evaporated. The canyon lurched, and the chains erupted with white fire, the sigils blazed brighter. Than ever before, Ashen rose to his feet, glowing with fierce determination. Kale blinked. Stunned, Ashen, Leora whispered, he's awakening. The wraith's expression flickered from amusement to something sharper. So, the Unbroken lives up to the name once more. Ashen stepped forward. I don't remember everything, he said. I don't even know who I was. The wraith tilted its head. And that frightens you, yes, Ashen said. But something else scares you. The wraith's smile faltered. Ashen lifted his chained arms, the sigils blazing, the chains levitating like serpents made of light. You're terrified, Ashen said softly, that I'll become who I was meant to be, instead of who he tried to break me into. For the first time, the wraith's expression cracked. Enough, it rushed him. Ashen met it with everything. Chains wrapped its arms. Chains wrapped its throat. Chains pierced the fabric of its memory, unraveling it from within. The wraith shrieked, her sound like glass being ground to dust. Ashen shouted with the last surge of strength tearing through him. Break me and I still stand. He pulled. Light exploded. The memory wraith tore apart, shattering into 1,000 shards of fading memory that dissolved into pale snow. Silence fell. Kale lowered his sword. His breath shook. Ashen, that attack, it was exactly like. He stopped himself. Ashen wiped frost from his face, chest heaving. Like what? He demanded. Kale looked away, his jaw tight. Like the last time you fought Aerith, Kale. Leora turned to Ashen, her voice trembling with awe. You're remembering your combat shaping, she said. Your body remembers what your mind does not. Ashen clenched his fists. I want the rest of my memories back, he said. All of them. Kel's face hardened. He looked toward the dark mouth of the canyon. Then we have to go deeper, he said. The Dreamsmith won't stop sending echoes. He knows you're regaining strength. A gust of icy wind hauled upward from the canyon depths. Leora lifted her lantern. Kale readied his sword. Ashen stepped forward. Then let's face the truth. Together, they descended into the deeper shadows of the divide, toward the memory that ruined their bond, toward the truth Aerith wanted to bury, and toward the next trial already waiting for them. Far above, where the canyon walls met the bitter cold sky, a faint ripple of laughter echoed. Stand while you can, little ember. The deepest break is yet to come. The deeper they went, the less the Morn divide resembled a canyon, and the more it felt like the inside of a wound. The ice lost its soft glow and hardened into jagged angles, facets cutting the air into sharp reflections of light and shadow. Memories no longer drifted as gentle echoes. They clustered in dense, crystalline knots, humming with quiet tension. Ashen could feel them, each knot a life, each life a choice, each choice a regret. His chains thrummed like plucked strings, answering an unheard melody. Leora kept close, her lantern a steady sphere of pale fire. Kale walked slightly ahead, shoulders taut, gaze fixed on the twisting path as though he knew it too well. Ashen caught up to him. You've been this deep before, he said. Kale didn't answer at first. Then, once, the word carried more weight than its size should allow. What did you see? Ashen pressed. Kale's mouth tightened. Enough to know some truths are bearable only once. Leora glanced between them, but said nothing. They descended another narrow stair carved into sheer ice. The whispers of the canyon receded, replaced by a slow, rhythmic pulse. It echoed through Ashen's bones, Steady and inevitable. Beat. Beat. The core, Leora murmured. We're close. The passage opened into a cavern. It wasn't large, not like the holes of the tower or the yawning plains of the bitter cold, but it felt vast in a different way. The ceiling hung low, studded with shards of memory like stars trapped in ice. At the center rose a single pillar, not ice, not stone. Glass. Clear, perfect, flawless, yet filled with swirling images that shifted too quickly to see. Every time Ashen tried to focus, the scenes changed. Soldiers in shining armor, scholars at quiet desks, chains being forged, a young man laughing, the same man screaming. He took a step forward. The glass pillar pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Leora's hand flew to his arm, careful. This is a core memory. If you enter it, there's no pulling back halfway. You see it all, or it crushes you. Ashen nodded slowly. Is this it? He asked Kale. The day I betrayed you, Kel's gaze was fixed on the pillar, eyes dark. This is the tower's memory of that day, he said. Not just yours. Not just mine. The building itself was an anchor. Remember things, Ashen exhaled, feeling his chest tighten. If I go in, he said, you come with me. Kel's jaw clenched. Ashen. I spent gods know how long alone in wreckage I didn't understand, Ashen said. I'm not watching this one alone. You were there. Leora was there. If this is our shared sin, we witness it together. Leora's lantern flickered, brighter for a heartbeat. I agree, she said quietly. If the divide shows us the worst of it, then the least we can do is share the weight. Kel closed his eyes. When he opened them, his gaze was raw. Very well, he said. We go together. They stepped forward as one. Ashen reached out. His fingers brushed the glass. The world shattered and reformed. He stood in the tower again. But this time, it wasn't a fragment, not a twisting shard. This was whole. Real. The glass tower at its peak, humming with power and purpose. The hull stretched wide beneath an arched ceiling of transparent crystal. Dreamlike cascaded down like colored rain, feeding intricate sigils etched into the floor. People moved everywhere, lantern bearers, scholars, young recruits, wardens in armor. Ashen, Leora, and Kel stood near the back, unseen but present witnesses inside a memory that had already happened. Near the center of the hole, another Ashen knelt. Chains wrapped his arms and chest, heavier and more intricate than the ones he wore now. They glowed with fierce white light, their sigils spinning like tiny, orbiting wheels. His face was pale, his eyes burnt. Kel stood over him, hands raised, threads of luminous dream stuff weaving between his fingers. Again, Aerith said, memory. Ashen gasped. I can't, yes. Aerith replied, voice calm, almost gentle. You can, your limits are a lie. Every time you die, the chains strip away a layer of fear. You are becoming more. Kale appeared at the edge of the scene, younger, but still bearing the same sharp eyes. He moved like a storm barely contained. Aerith, the Dreamsmith, did not turn. Not now, Warden. Kale strode forward anyway. You said this cycle would be shorter. He's been under for hours. Time is a construct, Aerith murmured. Your concern is noted, but irrelevant. Memory. Ashen's hands trembled. I can hear you, he muttered. Good, Kale said. He knelt beside him, ignoring the crackling heat of the chains. Then hear this too, we're done. No more cycles. No more deaths. This ends today. Aerith finally turned. His eyes glowed with faint silver. Beautiful, terrible, fathomless. You presume much, Kale. I presume, Kale said through clenched teeth, that my command as warden gives me the right to say when our people have suffered enough. Aerith tilted his head. Who forged those chains, Warden? Kel's jaw clenched. You did. Who calculated the thresholds at which a mind would shatter? You. Who argued that Ashen was the only one with the strength to survive them? Kale flinched. Ashen, watching from the sidelines, felt something coil in his gut. He looked at Kale. You argued for me. Kale couldn't hear him. Their presence was only that of observers, but Leora could. That's what he meant, she whispered. He believed in you. Believed you could carry more than anyone else. It started as faith. It became complicity. In the memory, Aerith stepped closer to Kale. You were my loudest proponent. The Dreamsmith said softly, you said, he will not break. He will stand where we would fall. Are you changing your mind now? Kale's hands curled into fists. I didn't agree to kill him by inches, he growled. You swore you would pull him back if it went too far. And has he broken? Aerith asked. Memory Ashen laughed hoarse and bitter. Not yet, he croaked. Aerith smiled faintly. You see, Kale swore under his breath. Then the hall shook. The distant boom of an explosion rattled the glass. Cries rose from beyond the doors. A lantern bearer ran in, out of breath. Dream rifts in the lower wards. Sir, the anchors are. Another tremor cut him off. Aerith's expression hardened. So, he said softly. It begins. Kale's eyes widened. What did you do? Aerith gestured lazily. I set the world on a path toward truth, he said. The shaping hand has grown weak. Clinging to comfort, it needed a decisive break. So I broke it. Kale reached for his sword. Memory Ashen tore at his chains. Leora both in memory and beside Ashen gasped as massive fractures snaked through the glass ceiling. The tower was falling. This was the day, Leora whispered. The shattered dawn. In the memory, Aerith turned to Ashen, his expression suddenly soft. One last trial, little Ember, he said. If you wish to end this, then end me. He stepped back, arms spreading, inviting attack. But no, he added, voice dropping to a silk-edged whisper, that if you move against me now, you won't reach your friend in time. Ashen's gaze snapped to the far side of the hall. Kale stood at a support pillar, bracing it with raw strength as panicked apprentices and wardens dashed for the exits. Shards of glowing glass rained down. The pillar cracked. Kale was holding it up for everyone else. The memory froze. The watchers Ashen, Leora, Kale stood in timeless silence as the choice crystallized. You told me, Ashen whispered, voice shaking, I betrayed you. That I turned on you. Kale stared at the scene, face carved from stone. Yes, he said. And this is it, Ashen snarled. This was the choice. Kill Aerith and maybe stop everything, or go help you. Leora's hand trembled on her lantern handle. You didn't have time for both, she whispered. The memory snapped back into motion. Memory Ashen sucked in a breath. His face contorted with rage, fear, exhaustion. He looked at Kale. At the people behind him. At Aerith. Then he spoke. Say it, Ashen whispered. What did I say? Memory Ashen shouted, voice breaking. You told me to stand, Kale. Not to crawl back for you, Kale flinched. In the memory, his eyes widened with hurt. You promised, he shouted back. Another fracture ripped through the ceiling. Memory Ashen's chains burned white. I promised to win this, he yelled. If one of us falls, the other goes on. That was your rule? Kale's knuckles turned white on the cracking pillar. Ashen, don't make me break my own strength for your sake, Memory Ashen roared. You taught me better than that, Leora, watching, whispered, oh, Ashen. In the memory, Ashen turned. He ran at Aerith, chains blazing like twin suns. He never looked back. Kale watched him go, watched his closest friends sprint toward the architect of their suffering, while a storm of shattering glass fell around them. The pillar groaned. Leora saw him grit his teeth. He held. He held as long as he could. Then, the memory flared white. Hot. Shattering. Final. Ashen staggered as the vision dissolved back into the cavern of the divide. He dropped to his knees, every breath a jagged piece of glass. I left you, he whispered. I left you to hold up the tower alone. Kale stood motionless, staring at the space where the pillar had buckled. You made the only choice you believed mattered, he said quietly. You chose to go for the throat of the monster instead of the side of the man dying for strangers. His face was unreadable. Ashen pressed his hands to his temples. I used your own words against you, he said. Your own training. If one of us falls, the other goes on. I threw it back in your face and walked away. Leora knelt beside him. You also knew he would die if Aerith remained alive, she said gently. You weren't choosing between kill and victory. You were choosing between a chance to save everyone or a chance to save only him. Ashen let out a broken laugh. Some choice, he looked up at Kale. I hurt you. I betrayed you. Kel met his eyes and for the first time, Ashen saw the depth of the scar his words had left. You didn't strike me, Kale said. You didn't stab me in the back. You didn't sell me to Aerith. You did something worse. He stepped closer. You turned my faith in you into a weapon against me. You made me the reason you left. Ashen opened his mouth. Closed it. What happened? He burst out. After I ran at him, Kale looked away. The tower fell, he said. I held the pillar as long as I could. Long enough for most to escape. Not long enough for everyone. His hand flexed unconsciously, as if still feeling the strain. I thought I would die there, he said. I thought, good. At least I don't have to live with the choice you made. Ashen's stomach nodded. But you didn't die, he said. Kel's jaw tightened. No, your chains flared at the last moment. A ward snapped into place over me. One of your impulsive, half-conscious protections. It preserved my mind just long enough for the Dreamsmith's fall to drag it into the dream realms. Instead of crushing it entirely, he let out a humorless breath. So you see, Ashen, you abandoned me, you saved me, you damned me. All at once, Ashen closed his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. The words felt small, pathetic, inadequate. Kale was quiet for a long time. Then he stepped closer. The warden's hand settled on Ashen's shoulder, heavy, solid, shaking just slightly. I spent a long time hating you for that day, Kale said. Hating myself for helping forge your chains. Hating Aerith for twisting both our choices. His grip tightened. But I never stopped believing you were the one person who could stand where the rest of us broke. And now, he exhaled. Now I see the whole of it. The tower's memory. My part. Yours. His. Ashen opened his eyes. Kale looked tired. So tired. I don't forgive you, Kale said. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the way you want, Ashen swallowed. But, Kale continued, I will stand with you. If we're to end him, we do it together. No more half-truths. No more walking away while the other one holds up the world. A fragile, painful warmth stirred in Ashen's chest. He nodded. Then we stand, he said. Leora rose, lantern brightening. The divide has given what it can, she said. You've seen the heart of your shared wound. If we stay longer, it will only start showing variations to torment you. The cavern shuddered, as if agreeing. Cracks crept through the glass pillar, its swirling seams beginning to disperse. Ashen pushed himself to his feet. He felt different. Not healed. Not whole. But aligned. The chains lay heavier on his arms, yet they no longer felt like foreign metal. The sigils shifted, rearranging. One circle of light dimmed, another flared gold, forming a new symbol he did not recognize. What does that mean? He asked, staring at it. Leora studied the glowing sigil. It means, she said softly, that this memory is yours now, not his. Not the divide's. If the Dreamsmith tries to use it against you again, he'll find it anchored. Ashen exhaled slowly. Good, he said. Because I'm done letting him decide which scars define me. Kel picked up his sword. Then it's time we left this graveyard, he said. The Heartspire won't wait, and neither will he. They turned back toward the passage. Behind them, the pillar finally split. scattering its memories into faint motes of dying light. For a heartbeat, Ashen thought he heard Aerith's voice again. You will break, little ember. He touched the new sigil on his chain. Maybe, he murmured. But I'll still stand, the canyon answered with silence. And somewhere far away, in a tower of fractured glass and endless dreams, the Dreamsmith paused his work, eyes narrowing as he felt something shift. Not in the chains he forged, but in the will of the man who wore them. The climb out of the Morn Divide felt longer than the descent. Ashen, Kale, and Leora walked in silence at first, boots clicking against ice steps carved into the canyon wall. The air grew less heavy with each level they ascended. The whispers receded to a dull murmur, like distant waves behind stone. Yet something had changed. The chains at Ashen's wrists no longer felt like a foreign weight imposed on him. They sat with a strange rightness, as if the metal had finally admitted it belonged to him and not the other way around. The new sigil pulsed faintly. A steady, golden heartbeat. Leora kept glancing at it with a mixture of relief and wariness. You're staring, Ashen said eventually, breath misting in a chill air. She didn't look away. I'm thinking, dangerous habit, survival habit, she corrected, that. Simple, it's not from Aerith's designs, it's yours. Ashen raised a brow. Mine? Leora nodded. The original chainwork had 24 primary glyph spheres, drives, fractures, susceptibilities. The 25th was theoretical. Aerith called it the fulcrum rune, the point where all other aspects could balance. Ashen flexed his hand, watching the light shift across the sigil's edges. And you think this is it? I think, Leora said, that every time you refuse to break the way he expects, something in his design slips from his control. The chain is no longer just his tool, it's becoming your choice. Kale snorted from ahead of them. He'll hate that. Ashen almost smiled. Good. They reached the canyon's rim and stepped once more into the wide, pale expanse of the bitter cold. The realm seemed slightly dimmer. Or perhaps that was only Ashen's perception, now that he'd seen what lay beneath it. How far to the heart spire? He asked. Far, Kale said. And not just in distance. I can walk, Ashen replied. Kale gave him a look. It's not your feet I'm worried about. Leora lifted her lantern, its blue light sweeping over ice dunes and jagged ridges. The heart spire doesn't sit neatly in one realm, she said. After the shattered dawn, it splintered. Pieces of it exist in the bitter cold, the silent hell, the counting grounds, and the waking world. To reach its core, we'll have to walk between layers. Ashen frowned. Walk between, like we did before, deeper, she said. More dangerous. The seams between realms are thinner near the spire. Aerith can touch us more easily there. Kel's grip tightened on his sword. He already knows where we're heading. He won't wait politely at the end of the road. Ashen looked out across the frost. Then we don't give him the satisfaction of seeing us hesitate. They set out. The bitter cold began to shift as they walked. At first it was subtle, shapes stirring beneath the ice that didn't quite resolve into forms, gusts of wind that carried faint echoes of laughter or weeping. Then the changes grew bolder. Memories rose like frost flowers from the ground. Ashen saw them as they passed. A woman closing the eyes of a fallen comrade, a child releasing a paper lantern to the sky, a young soldier throwing down his sword and walking away from a battlefield. Abandoned battles, Leora murmured. Choices that were never finished. They feel, Ashen searched for the word. Awake, they feel hungry, Kale corrected. Keep moving, the horizon shifted. What had once been an unbroken line of white fractured, revealing a dark slash carving across the world like a wound. As they drew nearer, Ashen realized it wasn't a cliff or canyon, it was a border. The air shimmered along it as if reality itself had been stitched together with unstable thread. Leora's lantern flared. We're nearing the first seam, she said. Beyond this, the realms overlap. Don't lose focus. What you see may not be what the others see. Comforting, Ashen muttered. They stepped across. The world lurched. For a heartbeat, He was nowhere or everywhere, and then he staggered into a new landscape. The ice underfoot remained, but it was veined now with black stone etched in spirals. The sky hung low and heavy, thick with gray clouds that never moved. Ghostly pillars rose from the ground at strange angles, each topped with a luminous orb. Every orb held a frozen scene, a person standing at a crossroad. Some turned left, some right, some stood still. Kale grunted. The counting grounds, Ashen had heard the name before from Leor's earlier description, but standing in it was different. What does it count? He asked. Decisions, Leora said. Every choice that changed a life leaves a shadow here. Paths taken, paths refused. As they passed one orb, Ashen slowed involuntarily. A younger version of himself stood within its light and scarred, unchained, laughing with a woman whose face he couldn't fully see. They were standing on a balcony of the glass tower, watching dreamlight flow beneath them. What is that? Ashen whispered. Kale didn't look. A path that no longer exists, Leora's voice gentled. A life you might have had Aerith chosen another subject. Ashen's stomach twisted. Can I touch it? Leora's tone sharpened. No. You already nearly drowned in the divide. The grounds don't show truth so much as possibility. If you lose yourself in them, you never leave. The woman in the orb turned, ghost smiling at a version of Ashen who would never stand here. He tore his gaze away. How much of this is him? Ashen asked. How much of these realms is actually Aerith's doing? Some, Leor said. Not all. He didn't create the dream realms. He learned to wound them. The bitter cold existed long before your chains. So did the silent hell and the counting grounds. He simply widened the cracks. Kel gestured ahead with his sword. Whatever their origins, they won't remain neutral near the heart spire. The spire is his anger now. Everything close to it bends under his will. Ashen nodded. So we unmake the anchor. Leora looked at him thoughtfully. You say that like it's simple. It isn't, Ashen said. But neither is bleeding my way through the ruins of my own mind. Yet here we are, Kale snorted, just barely. He's getting his old arrogance back. That a bad thing? Ashen asked. Kel's gaze flicked briefly to him. Not when it's pointed in the right direction. They walked on. The counting grounds thickened around them, the orbs growing denser, crowding the path. Soon they weren't just walking past decisions, they were walking through them. Ashen flinched as one orb brushed his shoulder. A vision flared, himself standing over Earth's kneeling form, chains wrapped around the Dreamsmith's throat. Say it, memory, Ashen demanded. Aerith's eyes burned. You were right, he rasped. You could not be broken. Ashen hesitated. And that, Aerith whispered, is exactly why I had to make you my proving ground. The vision snapped away as Kel yanked him sideways. Watch where you're walking, the warden growled. He'll twist every what if into a knife if you let him. Ashen exhaled shakily. These are all possibilities. Reflections of turning points, Leora said. Futures that never fully settled. Aerith loves this place. It's proof to him that nothing is fixed, that everyone, given the chance, will choose the path that reveals their true nature. His nature, Ashen muttered. Not truth. Kale nodded toward the horizon. Look, the orbs thinned. Ahead, rising out of the mingled ice and stone like a blade of glass driven into the world, stood a structure. Half ruin, half monolith. The heart spire. It was smaller than the tower Ashen remembered, yet somehow more imposing. Its lower half was cracked and jagged, fused to the bitter cold's ice and the ground's black stone. Its upper half shimmered, semi-transparent, flickering between forms tower, tree, spear. Spire never fully stable. Dusky light pulsed from its heart, sending out ripples that distorted the air. Ashen's breath caught. I've seen it, he said softly. In every wreckage I woken, always at the edge of the horizon. Never reachable, you weren't ready to reach it, Leor said. He kept you circling the outskirts. Testing, refining, waiting for you to either break or become interesting enough to challenge him. Ashen's lips thinned. He should have picked someone who quit easier. Kale studied the spire, eyes sharp and calculating. He won't let us walk straight through the doors, he said. He'll throw everything at us before we reach the inner chamber. Shades.wriths.devils. The echoes of everyone we've ever failed. Ashen rolled his shoulders, feeling the chains adjust, the lights steady. Good, he said. I owe a few of them conversations. Leora's smile was thin, but real. Listen to me, she said. Once we cross the last seam, the spire will be part waking, part dream. Whatever happens, there will echo on both sides. If you fall, you won't just wake in another ruin. This will be final. Ashen nodded. No more loops, no more resets. Kale met his gaze. Do you regret seeing what the tower remembered? He asked quietly. Ashen thought of the choice, of the pillar, of the words he'd thrown at Kale like knives, because he'd believed it was the only way to keep moving. Yes, he said, and no. I regret hurting you. I don't regret trying to kill Aerith. Kale's jaw worked. Then we finish what you started, he said. And this time, Leora added, we don't leave anyone holding up the ruins alone. The last seam waited before the heart spire, a thin curtain of distorted air, shimmering like heat over snow. Beyond it, Ashen could sense Aerith's attention. Not distant, not abstract, focused. A predator's stillness before the pounce. He took a breath, felt fear, felt anger, felt the weight of every scar. And beneath it all, something simple and stubborn. I will not lay down. He stepped toward the seam. Kale at his right, Leora at his left. The chains glued. The lantern burned. The sword waited. Together, they crossed. The world inverted, and the heart spire opened its jaws to receive them. Chapter 10. Crossing the last seam felt like falling upward. Ashen's stomach lurched as the world flipped and folded. For a heartbeat there was nothing, no sky, no ground, no breath, only the sensation of being unmoored, pulled in all directions at once. Then his boots struck solid stone. He dropped to one knee, chains clattering. The air around him was wrong. Too sharp, too bright, too quiet. He looked up. They were inside the heart spire. The chamber stretched impossibly high, its walls made of shifting glass and stone. Fractured panels of reality overlapped windows into the bitter cold, the silent hell, the counting grounds, and countless other realms he didn't recognize. They flickered and traded places in slow, tidal motions. At the very center, rising from the floor like a crystalline flower, stood a dais. On it sat a throne, and on that throne, draped in a mantle of silver light and shadow, waited Aerith Kale, the Dreamsmith. He looked almost as he had in the memories, tall, composed, silver hair falling loose around his face. But there was something more now. His edges blurred, his form both present and not, as if he were equal parts man and echo. His eyes opened. The chamber stilled. Leora's lantern dimmed, as if going to a greater light. Kale's sword grew heavy in his grip, its metal humming in low, uneasy resonance. Ashen stood. His chains remained bright. Aerith watched him rise, a faint, pleased smile touching his lips. So, the Dreamsmith said softly, "You found your way at last, little Ember." Ashen took a step forward. "I got tired of waking in your ruins. Thought it was time I visited the one who kept building them." Aerith's smile widened slightly. Still sharp. Even sharpened, his gaze slid to Kale and Leora. "And you brought witnesses." How quaint. Kale raised his sword. "This ends today, Aerith." Aerith's eyes glowed faintly silver. "You still insist on framing things in days, Warden. In beginnings and endings. You, of all people, should know better. Everything is cycle. Trial. Refinement, His gaze shifted back to Ashen. And you are my finest refinement. Ashen's fingers curled around his chains. You broke me, he said. Hundreds of times. Maybe more. I tested you, Aerith corrected. And look what you've become. He rose from the throne with smooth, effortless grace. No fear left. No illusion of safety. No blind faith in heroes. You are what the world needs. Ashen took another step forward. I am what I chose to be. Not what you made. Aerith tilted his head. Are you certain? The chamber walls flickered. Scenes flashed across the glass Ashen in countless ruins, dying under shade class, drowning in dream fire, standing alone against hordes of nightmares. Each time he rose. Each time the chains grew more intricate, the sigils brighter. Aerith spread his hands. Who put you in those trials? He asked. Who carved your strength into something that does not yield? Who burned fear out of you layer by layer, until all that remained was this stubborn refusal to fall? Kel's jaw tightened. Leewar's hand clenched on her lantern. Ashen's heart pounded, but his voice remained steady. You did, he said. You tested me, broke me, used me. But you keep making the same mistake, Aerith. Silver eyes narrowed. Oh, Ashen lifted his chains. You think pain reveals truth. You think suffering peels away everything false. But pain only shows what someone will do when they're cornered. It doesn't tell you who they choose to be when they aren't. Aerith's expression thinned. Choice. The fragile little god you all worship. Choice is an excuse. Given enough pressure, enough fear, enough fire, everyone chooses the same way. Survival, power, self. He stepped off the dais, descending the steps with unhurried calm. You proved it yourself. You chose to leave Kale beneath the tower. You chose to run for my throat instead of pulling him from the rubble. You wielded his own rule against him. Ashen's chest tightened. Beside him, Kale flinched. And yet, Aerith went on, he still stands by you. Still clings to the idea that your choice meant something noble. That his suffering was worth your strength. How touching. Ashen met Kel's eyes. Saw the pain there. Saw the anger. Saw, beneath it all, a stubborn thread of loyalty that had somehow survived even betrayal. I did hurt you, Ashen said quietly. I did choose to run forward instead of back. I can't pretend otherwise. Kale exhaled sharply, the sound half a laugh. Good. I'd hate to think you were becoming saintly on me. Ashen turned back to Aerith. But pain isn't the only crucible. You spent all your genius proving people break. You never learned what people do when they've already broken and still get back up. Aerith's gaze chilled. Ashen began to walk toward him. Every step echoed. I woke in your wreckage more times than I can count. I lost my past, my name, my purpose. I learned that the people I trusted most were tangled in your schemes. I saw the worst of myself in ice and glass and shadow. He stopped a few paces away, chains glowing. I am not unbroken. I'm the opposite. I am every break I survived. And that's something you never accounted for. The chamber trembled. Aerith's composure cracked by a hairline. You speak as though that makes you free. It makes you manageable. Predictable. You rise because you cannot bear the thought of yielding. It is compulsion, not will. Maybe at first, Ashen replied. But not now. He pointed one chain at the Dreamsmith. You created something you don't understand anymore. Every time I shattered, I rebuilt myself not into your ideal, but into mine. You wanted a weapon that could not break. You got a man who refuses to stay broken. The new sigil flared gold. Leora whispered under her breath, eyes wide. He's claiming the fulcrum. Aerith's gaze flicked to her. So you taught him the word. You always were a dangerous little lantern, Leora. Shining light where it did not belong, his form blurred. Reality warped. Without warning, the heart spire erupted into motion. Shades poured from the walls, dozens, then hundreds of them, their hollow faces wearing echoes of people Ashen had seen in bitter cold, silent hell, the grounds. Some wore his face. Some wore Kel's. Some wore Leora's. Their forms were smudged, wrong, emotions twisted into weapons. Kale swung his sword up. Leora's lantern blazed. Ashen's chains rose like twin arcs of lightning. Aerith's voice cut through the chaos. Break, the shades surged. The battle was a storm. Kale met the first wave with brutal precision, his greatsword cleaving through shadow and memory alike. Each strike sent wraiths bursting into shards of cold light. Leora stood at his back, lantern blazing beams of pure illumination that burned away shades before they reached them. Ashen moved differently. The chains were no longer just weights, no longer just shackles. They were extensions of his will. He stepped into a line of charging shades. They passed through him, no. He passed through them. The chains drew bright arcs, carving patterns in the air that snapped closed like traps. Each pattern caught a shade and pinned it, freezing in place before tearing its form apart. He bled, a claw slipped through his guard and raked his side. He crawled. A heavy shade slammed him to the ground, its face wearing his own, eyes welled with despair. He roared and threw it off. I bleed, he gritted, dragging himself upright. I crawl. But I don't fall, Kel's voice cut through the din. Ashen left, Ashen spun. A cluster of shades had bypassed them, racing toward the days, toward the Heartspire's pulsing core. Ashen's chain snapped outward. He lashed them into the ground. Symbols burst from the impact circles of light, interlocking, layered. The shades hit the circles and disintegrated with soundless screams. Leora stared. You're shaping the spire's own patterns. You're rewriting the anchor work. Aerith watched the storm he had summoned and, for the first time, a hint of genuine interest warred with irritation in his eyes. You go further than previous iterations. Most versions of you either collapsed in self-loathing or drowned in righteous fury by now. How many times have you run this scene? Ashen threw back, panting. Enough, Aerith said simply. Another wave of shades rose. This time they wore no borrowed faces. They looked like Ashen, every one of them. Some angry. Some broken. Some numb. They spoke as they advanced. You left him, you failed them, you're only strong when someone else pays for it. You're not a hero, you're a weapon that likes to pretend. The words struck deeper than claws. Ashen staggered. Aerith's voice slid into the stillness between heartbeats. Truth, you are. Creature of pain, Ashen, you only move when something hurts. Take away the hurt, and what remains? For a moment, the answer was nothing. Cold, empty, silent. Then Ashen heard another voice. Not Aerith's. Not the shades, his own. From the wreckage. From the lake. From the divide. From every time he'd whispered it to himself when the world ended around him. Stand. He straightened. The shades closed in. I am not made of steel, he said quietly. I know that now. I bleed. I doubt. I make the wrong choice. I hurt the people I love. The shadows faltered, just a fraction. But Ashen growled, dragging his chains close to his chest, refused. To shatter. The fulcrum sigil flared gold-white. His chains exploded with light. The wave of shades hit the flare and disintegrated, torn apart by a force that wasn't pure power, but something old and stubborn. Refusal. Aerith's composure finally cracked. Enough, the Dreamsmith snapped. The shades vanished. Kale and Leora froze mid-motion, their forms blurring at the edges as the Heartspire bent reality round Ashen and Aerith. They stood alone at the center. Man and Maker, do you truly believe you stand apart from my design? Aerith asked, voice lower now, edged with something almost like anger. You talk of choice, of refusal, of self. But every chain on your body is a thread I wove. Every scar you carry is a test, I said. You are my work. My proof. Ashen met his gaze steadily. Then you failed your own test. Aerith's eyes narrowed. Explain. Ashen lifted his arms. Your design was supposed to strip away fear, hope, love, everything but this. He gestured at himself. This relentless will to rise no matter the cost. A perfect survivor. A man who doesn't break. Yes, you are that. Ashen shook his head. No, I'm not. He thought of Kale, holding the tower, of Leora, lighting the darkest places, of the lost in the silent hell, of the echo under the ice. I'm not unbroken. I'm full of cracks. What keeps me moving isn't your chains, or your tests, or your precious truth. It's the fact that every time I stand, I can choose who I stand for. The sigil on the floor shifted, incorporating fragments of marks that matched Leora's lantern and Cal's sword. You were right about one thing. Pain changed me. But it didn't erase me. It gave me more to carry. More reasons not to lie down. Aerith's face was still. You think that makes you more than a weapon? I think it makes me one thing you never wanted. And what is that? Free. For a heartbeat, they stared at each other. Then Aerith moved. No more proxies, no more echoes. He stepped forward, and the heart spire shifted around him as if the entire structure were an extension of his body. Reality tilted. Gravity inverted. Light bent sideways. Ashen threw himself forward to meet him. The impact wasn't entirely physical. It was will against will. Chains against a crafted nightmare. Aerith's hand closed around one of the shackles, intent blazing in his eyes. Yield, he hissed. Return to cycle. Let me refine you until there's no more doubt. Ashen felt the pull. His memories flickered the tower, the divide, the wreckage, the endless deaths. It would be so easy to collapse back into it, to let Aerith decide when it was enough. He ground his teeth. No, he focused on the cracks. Not the wounds Aerith had made, but the places where other people had left their marks. Cal's fury carved into his heart the day Ashen left him beneath the tower. Leora's stubborn hope, a lantern flickering in the darkest corners. The lost, walking in loops, waiting for someone to change their ending. He dragged them all into the fulcrum. Break me, Ashen snarled. Tear me down. Strip me bare. I know how this goes. You've done it before. But this time, the chains blazed brighter than they ever had. You don't get to decide what I become after. The fulcrum sigil ignited. Light roared outward. Aerith staggered. For the first time, he looked less like a god and more like a man caught in the feedback of his own creation. What are you doing? He demanded. Ashen tightened his grip on the chains. Taking back the anchor, the heart spire screamed. Panels of reality shattered. The bitter cold, the silent hell, the counting grounds, all the realms visible through the spire's shifting glass twisted as the anger work rewrote itself. Kale and Leora snapped back into full solidity, dragged into the storm. Ashen, Leora shouted over the roar. If you break the spire entirely, the realms could collapse. Aerith laughed, wild and bright. Yes. Collapse them. Prove me right. In the end, faced with the terror of oblivion, even you will choose destruction over uncertainty. The choice opened before Ashen like a chasm. Crush the anchor and risk tearing everything apart. Or leave it intact and let Aerith keep his throne. He could end it right now, or condemn everyone to live in the Dreamsmith's shadow. For a moment, he thought of walking away, of letting someone else decide. He thought of the Ashen who ran at Aerith and left Kale behind. He thought of the Ashen in the ice, whispering *give up*. Then he thought of something else, the Ashen who had woken in wreckage and, without knowing why, refused to lay down. I'm done choosing between only your options, he said. He changed his grip. He didn't tear the chains free of the spire. He drove them into it. Light and shadow collided. The chains burrowed deep into the Heartspire's core, weaving not as bindings, but as conduits. The fulcrum sigil spread across the structure, rewriting the glyphs. Aerith choked, clutching his chest as if something vital were being pulled from him. "What are you?" "You wanted an unbroken," Ashen said. "You got me instead. And I say the spire doesn't belong to you." He reached deeper, found the pulse Aerith had used to feed on fear and despair, and turned it not off outward. The Heartspire shuddered, then released. A wave rushed across the realms. In the silent hell, some of the lost stiffened, their screams softening into confused breaths. In the bitter cold, a few echoes blinked, the frost above them beginning to crack. The anchor's purpose shifted. No longer a net, catching suffering to fuel one man's transformation, a beacon. Ashen swayed, drained. Aerith fell to one knee. "You can't," the Dreamsmith guessed. "You don't understand what they'll do with that freedom. They'll waste it. They'll fall back into their petty cruelties. Their small fears. All my work was about proving your nightmare was the only truth," Ashen said. "I'm not here to tidy up your thesis." Leora ran to his side, her lantern burning steadily, anchoring him. Kale approached Aerith, sword lowered, his face carved with complicated emotion. "You built something extraordinary," Kale said quietly. "Then you twisted it. Ashen isn't your proof. He's your failure." Aerith looked up at them. For the first time, he didn't look smug or cold. He looked old. "Tear me apart, then," he whispered. "Finish your rebellion. Prove that, in the end, you are no different." Ashen looked at him. He could. He could wrap the chains around the Dreamsmith's throat and pull until every echo of him scattered. He could end the man who had turned suffering into craft. He thought of the chorus that had pulsed through every ruin, every rise. Asterisk, "You can beat me down, throw me to the fire, watch me fall 1,000 times, I'll still climb higher." Asterisk, he wasn't here to climb above Aerith. He was here to stand where Aerith never could. Ashen shook his head. "No," Aerith blinked. "What? I'm not going to kill you," Ashen said. "Not here." "Not like this," Kale stared. Ashen met his gaze. "If I kill him now, I make him right. I prove that the only answer to pain is more of it. I've been his weapon long enough." He looked back at Aerith. "You don't get to be a martyr. You get to live with what you did. And you don't get the spire anymore." He raised one hand. Chains of settle like the web the Dreamsmith had woven into the anchor slipped from Aerith's shoulders. Ashen severed them, one by one. Aerith gasped with each cut, his presence dimming. "No," Aerith whispered. "You're stripping my access. I'm giving you what you never gave anyone else," Ashen said. "Limits." When it was done, Aerith sagged. Still powerful, still dangerous, but no longer fused to the Heartspire. Just a man in a place that no longer belonged to him. Cal's voice was rough. "And if he tries again," Ashen looked at him, eyes steady. "Then we stand. Together this time." Kale held his gaze, then slowly, reluctantly, nodded. Leora exhaled in weary relief. "So," she said softly, "what now?" Ashen looked up. The Heartspire's glass walls were changing. The scenes they showed were no longer only nightmares. There were quiet moments now. Someone reaching back for a fallen comrade. A child sharing a blanket. A person walking away from a cliff instead of off it. The anchor was still there. It just didn't answer to Aerith anymore. Ashen felt the weight of his chains. He could feel the work ahead. Fear prickled down his spine. "I don't want to become what he was," he said. "I don't want to sit here and decide which dreams are worthy." "You don't have to," Leora said, touching his arm. You don't have to be a judge. You can be a guardian, Kale nodded. We could rebuild the wards. The old way. Lanterns and wardens. Guidance, not domination. Anchors, not cages, Ashen swallowed. He was so tired. Tired of fighting, of rising, of being the one who couldn't fall. I don't know if I can do this forever, he admitted. Leor smiled gently. No one asked you to. You just have to stand now. Long enough to set things on a better course. After that, others can stand beside you. After you. In your place. Kale smirked faintly. Besides, I'm not letting you take the whole burden again. We share it this time. Remember, Ashen let out a low breath that was almost a laugh, right? Together, he looked down at the chains one last time. They were still heavy. They still hurt. They always would. But they were not Aerith's anymore. He lifted his hands. The chains responded with a softer, steadier glow. They extended from him into the spire's core not as bindings, but as pathways. A network, not a net. An invitation, not a trap. He felt the realms respond. The silent hell's oppressive silence thinned, broken by whispers of song. The bitter cold's ice cracked, as if considering a thaw. The world wasn't healed, but it had room to heal. Ashen sagged. Leor stepped in to keep him upright. Kale moved to his other side. You break, Leor murmured. You fall, Kale added. But you still stand, they finished together. Ashen smiled, his eyes burning. Yeah, he said, I still stand. He turned toward the spire's grate, shifting windows toward the countless lives beyond them, most of whom would never know his name. He didn't need them to. He closed his eyes, felt the ache, felt the cracks, felt the choice, then he opened them again. Let's get to work, he said. Outside, the realms trembled, not in fear this time, in possibility. And somewhere, far from thrones and anchors and chains, in a small room lit by a single candle, a girl who had been lost for so long suddenly took a breath, blinked, and remembered how to stand.
Woke up in the wreckage of another dream. Ashes in my lungs, can't even scream. Every step I take, I'm dragging chains, but I wear my wounds like a badge of pain. Friends turn ghosts, let me in the storm. I build my home where the hurt is born. Shadows laugh while I bleed inside, but I'm still breathing, I won't hide. They say just let go, you've lost too much, but I don't break, I turn to dust. You can beat me down, throw me to the fire, watch me fall 1,000 times, I'll still climb higher. Tear my soul, rip out my plans, but break me, I'll still stand. I've walked through hell with no hand to hold, buried dreams in the bitter cold, but I learned to scream in silence loud, learn to fight when they count me out. No light above, just a heart that burns, still I rise, I never learn. You can be